Great. So this is the part where Karen and Sarah describe what you work on together, and how has it been to, what are the benefits in both directions about learning and moving forward with better poultry production and marketing?
Well, I mean, Karen, you mind if I go?
No.
I guess I'm not screen sharing, but well, anyway, so
Can we see?
like in 2013, when Gramad bumped me all of a sudden, I had to sort of redesign the poultry processing plan. In 2019, we got notice that our local slaughterhouse was shuttering its doors to its private label community, which pretty much meant every local rancher in the Northern California area that was using this plant had to find a new place to process their cows, pork, goat, and lamb. I took my pork, lamb, and goats to this facility every other week for the past 7 years. It has been a major part of my business plan, in that it was the thing that allowed me to be able to sell fresh meat at the farmer's market. It was the game changer, really, when it came to making an actual living at the farmer's market, because I could process meat locally, have them cut and wrapped locally, all USDA, of course, and take them to the farmer's market. My poultry, I only process 4 times a year. I only have fresh chicken 4 times a year. I already knew that selling, because I've always processed probably more poultry than I had per pound until 6 years ago. And then I had to switch things. Anyway, so basically this was a big deal for a lot of us. I had to make some major changes in my business model, to the extent that last weekend was my last farmer's market, period. I have no plans to go to farmer's markets anymore, because I can't figure out how to make enough money to do all the extra work that is required and all the extra costs that are required to have frozen meat at the farmer's market, which just won't bring in the revenue. People don't want, if you can't show it to them and you can't have it on display, it's very difficult to sell. On a small scale, I think it probably could work. My scale, it just doesn't work. I also knew I needed to find 24 or more hours in the week to haul animals all over Northern California. So the only sacrifice I had was those marketing hours. So there, I was spending roughly 24 to 30 hours a week on just getting the meat to the slaughterhouse, getting the animals, to the slaughterhouse, getting the meat to the processing, the cut and wrap facility, getting the meat back to the farm, organizing the meat and preparing it, and sitting at farmers markets 3 days a week. That was a lot of time, but I needed to find time. So I'm no longer doing farmers markets. I'm starting a more CSA model, pre-selling things as much as I can, and going back to my wholesale community. It's a big, big change. So, but I'm not the only one. There are many ranchers in our area that have been affected by this, and thanks to people like Karen and our supervisors and the permits, even Sonoma County in general has been very supportive in trying to help us find a solution to the local ranching community. And it might also solve our poultry processing community, where there's talk of some of these can actually process poultry. So in the end, that horrible thing that happened at the end of 2019 certainly might turn out to be a really awesome thing in the future for all ranchers. So Karen and I, and it's not just me and Karen. I mean, it's such a large, I mean, this has probably been, over my 12 years, the largest effort of local ranchers coming together, and the community members and the county members, county officials, and I don't know how, I mean, it's just sort of amazing, the force of people behind supporting this move to get mobile processing in Sonoma County. Because when I first heard that was our next step, and I'm like, well, gosh, we've been trying to do this for 12 years. And I mean, the doors just it's just so impossible. It's cost prohibitive. There's just so many reasons. Nobody actually wants to run a poultry or a processing plant. Turns out I was wrong. Turns out the county is is supporting us. All of the people, even the farm bureaus helping us. I mean, there really are, every piece of the community is helping the local ranching community get something going within the next, hopefully year and a half. We're not, I mean, brick and mortar might happen, but I think if a mobile unit happens, it'll be even better. And the USDA, that's the other, I mean, even the USDA is on our side. So, I mean, if you have anything to add, I mean, it's really sort of an amazing event of different people coming together to work on this. And Karen and myself we're just part of it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Right. And, I learned so much from Sarah because, like, I'm not a farmer. I just help people figure out what the regulations are. So seeing how it works in practice, and Sarah's done mobile processing on her farm. So she's got that experience. And so that's been fabulous for me. But yeah, this is a great working group. We've also got UC Cooperative Extension in Marin County and Mendocino. And so yeah, it's a large group that is working on this. And because everybody's come together, meaning the ranchers are like screaming for this, now we have some momentum to get something done. Before, it's been like one person's like, I want to do mobile processing, and then they find out all the costs, and then it just kind of goes away. So this is way more organized effort, and definitely it has a lot of great promise and support.
Yeah. So what's it going to look like, and how will it work, and what's the volume that you need? It sounds like you may be reaching a critical mass of volume that might make it work now where it hasn't worked elsewhere in other places with lower volume.
Right.
By volume, do you mean number of ranchers or people behind the initiative?
Number of animals.
I maybe both. Number of animals that you process?
Is a big deal. Like, that's something we learned at looking at the numbers for the slaughterhouse that shuttered its doors, is they weren't actually processing nearly as many animals through the local community as we thought. Now, part of that is like an attrition rate that happened over 2019, but when it comes down to it, there has to be minimum numbers that make these mobile processing units pencil out. I mean, the thing that shocked me is the majority of the sheep, goats, and hogs on that list were mine, and I was shocked by that.
Because your volume was...
Well, I know what my volume was, so I looked at the things, I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. Oh my gosh, that was me. So it's like, when you look at the numbers and you're starting to look, you're like, wow, we need more people to be in on this. And, just navigating the USDA slaughterhouses is difficult, and even for Marin Sun Farms, it's not an easy thing. I forgot your question now. It went on a tangent.
Well, it was about volume.
Oh, volume.
And what will it look like?
Well,
like how
right now,
the business model and the equipment, the slaughterhouse thing itself.
So right now so we've broken up the big group into smaller, there's a small working group working on the mobile slaughter unit piece of it. And so they're actually, like, tomorrow they're going to be meeting with one of the water boards to talk about what their requirements are. And they're really in the research phase. So that hasn't been determined yet. But it will be something that we know we'll have to move from ranch to ranch, because otherwise it would be, and this is a county thing, otherwise it would be considered almost like a brick and mortar, and it would require a use permit, whereas, we're also working with the county on this nuanced piece of it. If it gets moved around, and if there's no impacts to the land, then they don't need to really get involved, the county planning department. So yeah, there's just a lot of, right now it is really in the research stage. We had a meeting, our first big group meeting in December. And so yeah, it's just really, because it came on fast, and plus we had the wildfire, and so that set everybody back. So yeah, we're still in the research phase. And the whole poultry part is, yeah, that's being discussed, just because why not? But
Right. Yeah. So like one unit that I'm aware of is an example would be a 53-foot semi truck that can process so many cows, pigs, sheep, goats, or poultry in a day. The limiting factor of a lot of these things is the coolers and the refrigeration. And that's sort of where the costs change for these units. The ranches have to be big enough to take these on in their property. Some ranches are. They also have to have certain infrastructure on the farm, like concrete pads and covers and stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of different things, but basically one would look like is we'd drive a 53-foot semi truck onto one of the ranches. It would have these holding corrals that are really just farm structures. They don't have to be super complicated, but they might have to be able to collect water in a certain fashion. And then you would bring your livestock, either the livestock from the ranch or other places. The numbers are working out such that it looks like 2 weeks roughly at one site would be a good number, like if you wanted to think about it, and we would process as many things as we could during those 2 weeks. The poultry actually was, the idea behind it was looked at as a result of the fact that if they could be off season for the other livestock, and we could work those things in so that we would use that truck to its maximum capacity.
Fullest potential.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a couple different sizes of these units, but as far as the 53 footer, I think my understanding is they're all about 53 feet, but then there's this additional freezer space, and I don't quite understand that yet. I haven't actually been the ranchers to go look at these. I'm trying to stay out of that part of it as much as I can, but help connect all the right people as much as I can, because I do run a ranch by myself almost, so it's sort of hard.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Talk too much.
Any questions? No questions from the audience? Well, I don't know. To me, that sounds really interesting, because I work not only with NCAT as a nonprofit, and which we work with a lot of small farmers as they're trying to figure out their businesses, but also I'm also an organic inspector. And the main limiting factor I have heard from the field about organic livestock production is the lack of processing facilities that could be certified organic, such that people could sell their product as organic, but also, just even apart from the certification, just the practicalities of hauling animals a long distance in order to have them processed. So I would imagine that if, as you're developing this process, writing down what you're doing and sharing it with others could be of great interest, because there are other regions, Central Coast and Valley, and I would imagine many regions around the state and perhaps elsewhere where people are looking for a way to make a business model work. So thank you for your efforts, and keep us posted on how that goes.
Yeah.
No questions?
Wow, this is a quiet group.
Yeah.
How do you grade eggs? How do you know if they're A, double A, or B?
Oh, that's a really good question. That might be a CDF person. It has to do with the egg sac. So so here's the deal. So because I didn't want to be wrong about that, I've learned a lot of things about labeling. So I'm gonna chime in here. Is that if you don't want to have a carton for every single size and grade egg you have, what you do is you make sure that you never put anything in that carton that's either too low or too light or too low of grade. So let me clarify that. So all my cartons are marked medium, and here's why. Because I never put anything smaller than a medium in my egg cartons. I put medium, large, extra large, and jumbos in my egg carton. And that is because I don't want to have 5 different inventory numbers. This is okay. The CDFA is okay with that. And I told them.
And she will be
Yeah.
presenting momentarily after we're done with this
that's because
section.
Nobody's going to be unhappy with getting a bigger egg, right?
She's nodding, by the way.
Right. Nobody's going to be unhappy with getting a bigger egg. So that was my solution, to work around not having to have so many cartons. And then the grading part, I think we chose A because we're like, well, what if we misgrade something? And so I'm trying to look at my cartons real quick. Yeah, so we chose grade A, even though all of our eggs are mostly grade AA, because we like sell them within 7 days. And the air sac is definitely, let's see, it's large enough, small enough.
Size of a dime.
Yeah, it's tiny. So because of that, we've gone with grade A, because then we're never selling an egg that's older than what we've graded. Because grading has to do more with the age of your egg than it does with it's not your weight, right? So there's size of your eggs, which is medium, large, extra large. That's your weighing thing. That was the packing table on the left. But the grading part is looking at your air sac. So there's a piece of light for us underneath our little belt that shines light on them. And you can see if there's blood spots or cracks or checks. I'm sure the CDFA person will go into that. I guess I could have taken pictures today when I was washing eggs showing that stuff, but I'm sorry I didn't. But yeah, so as far as that kind of stuff goes, if you're only going to print one carton, think about what you're going to be selling. Now for my restaurant eggs, I will write the label, the stuff on them if I sell small eggs or peewee eggs. And customers like that. The restaurant community likes small and peewee eggs. They like a consistent egg, if I have any suggestions for restaurant customers. And that's where we don't sell them in cartons, so that was easy. Our boxes, we just write in what size egg we're putting on them. Okay.
Great. So this is the moment. If you have a question that you've been considering, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Surely if anybody has any thought, now is the time to ask. And while we've got our two panelists here, and after this, we'll take a 5 to 10 minute break and then move into the presentation by CDFA. There must be somebody with a question, just to make sure that it's different when people, I know that by having a webinar, it makes it much more convenient, and we burn a lot less fossil fuel with people getting here. But I kind of miss actually seeing people's faces, and we do have a few people here in the room, but we, yeah,
we can't see them.
Right. So if anybody is online, and
this might be helpful for Karen. Karen, does every county have an ombudsman, and does the CDFA have a place for people to go to find those specific county resources? I mean, I when I started 12 years ago, I mean, I barely could even get a copy of my egg handler registration thing back from CDFA. It wasn't quite as organized. I don't know. I can't explain that one. Now they're really, really organized. You know, so I'm just wondering if is there a resource for folks to find their local resources through CDFA?
No, not every county has an ombudsman. In fact, I think there's only 5 or 6 of us in the state. We're all in the north. Marin has one, and I think there's one in Yolo or Solano, but I'm not positive because they kept switching. But anyway, but you can go on your, I definitely recommend looking at Maurice's website, the UC Davis, it was UC Poultry.
if you Google UC Davis Poultry, it'll come right up.
Yeah.
And I'll share a few other resources after the CDFA person presents.
Right. And then, I mean, the website or the pages that I showed you are mostly state regulation. There's some parts in there about local zoning, but mostly it's state regulation. So it applies across the whole state. So it would work for you. And there are resources on each of those pages too, in addition to what the information that's there. There's more in depth. That I just scratched the surface kind of, so. And as far as CDFA regulate, I mean, if you go to the egg handlers registration page, they do have contact information on there, so.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, any of those people I've ever emailed have always been really good about emailing back to CDFA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've always been really helpful. Okay, I have a question. What type of organic feed do I use and for egg layers? So I use all of my grains are produced through Modesto Milling. I have spent many years working on the particular ingredients. I'm sorry. Yeah, sort of the balance of them. So they're a little bit different than what you would go into the store and buy the Modesto Milling soy-free egg layer blend. But basically, suffice it to say, that's what I purchase. Is that all my hogs get a soy-free blend, my broilers get a soy-free blend, and my layers get a soy-free blend. The difference between all three of those is mostly the type of pellet and whether or not they have calcium in them for the layers. They all have oregano oil in them to help with coccidia and different parasites. That's been a really nice thing in the last couple years, having that. Broilers in the brooder room, no real problem with coccidiosis at all anymore. I don't use the soy-free for a lot of different reasons, but one of the major reasons is that organic soy is really difficult to source in the United States, and I don't want to get organic grains out of the United States. I only want domestic grains. So that's why I go for the soy-free organic grain produced through them. I buy it in like 24 tons at a time. It's the best way to buy it.
Right.
But you can buy it by the tote if you want to get it cheaper, and that's 2,000 pounds at a time. You just have to be able to handle things like that.
So last week, I don't know how many people online were with us last week, but we had a very thorough presentation about nutrition, poultry nutrition. James Hermes from Oregon State University, and a lot of detailed information about ingredients. So just to clarify, he talked about different sources of protein. What are your main sources of protein, and why did you decide, is it mainly the lack of organic soy, or why did you decide not to use soy, and what do you use as a protein source instead?
So the protein source has changed throughout the years. My favorite one and current one right now is sesame seed meal. It's palatable. It's I have amazing production numbers when I see it. My pigs are finishing fast. Whenever I use it, I've used canola meal, organic canola meal in the past. All of them always have alfalfa and peas in it, so those are pretty consistent ingredients. And so it changes depending on the weather, but mostly recently it's been the sesame seed meal, which is my favorite. That was the first one I tried, and then we went to a couple different others. Oh, bran was another one, bran meal. I have a question on egg layer breeds. I have experimented with lots. I dislike, what are they called? Leghorns. So I've actually found production birds that are better than leghorns on pasture in the most recent years. All my layers are purchased from Hoover Hatchery, and they're really the best. I've purchased layers from Privet Hatchery I did that for probably 12 years until only recently. The birds I buy are the Isa Browns, which is a commercial brown egg layer, red sex link. And I switch off 1,000 Isa Browns, and then I bring in another that are completely different in color, so I can always tell how old my flocks are. And those right now are my Sapphire Gems. These are a Czech breed, and they actually are lavender color. They're black and light gray and beautiful birds, all very docile. They lay amazing eggs. My production is just as high in the winter as it is in the summer. I can keep a consistent production with these birds. The only complaint I have is their eggs are too big sometimes. I mean, that's a funny thing, but that's the biggest complaint I have with these birds. Sapphire Gems. You go to Hoover Hatchery. Hoover Hatchery has their birds all listed online.
And Sarah, we had one other question about why did you choose to go soy-free?
There's a lot of different reasons. The phytoestrogens is one reason, but the biggest reason is the inability to get a quality soy organic grain in California. It has been a struggle for the years. Most of the stuff coming in is coming in from, well, the last I heard, I mean, I have actually not been giving my animals soy grain for pretty much 10 years now. So they've all had soy free. So I've been soy free for pretty much as long as I think they've had soy free grain.
And what are your concerns about phytoestrogens?
Well, I actually have had health problems in the past. As part of the reason I'm a farmer, I had a goiter as a result of too much estrogen levels when I was drinking soy milk as a young person. The more and more research I've done, I don't like industrial farming. Generally speaking, I think that there's a lot of problems with industrial farming and the soy crops. Not saying the corn crops are much better, but the people that I know we're buying corn from are managing and practicing better farming than the soy farmers that I'm aware of. So.
And any, one of the drawbacks to using canola that Dr. Hermes last week suggested was that you could get a fishy smell or taste to the eggs. Did you experience any of that?
I did not.
So maybe the quantities were low enough.
But I will say that the customers definitely speak more highly of the eggs when I'm feeding a sesame seed meal than when I'm doing the bran or the canola. Now, I do think it's a flavor thing because you smell that sesame seed grain and it smells good.
Delicious.
It's palatable. And that transfers out. I mean, it could also just be coincidence because I'm managing the pastures differently. You know, maybe better, maybe not. I don't know. I can't really tell you. My science is not good in those areas. So, you know, these are guesses.
And one of our farmer speakers, was it Ross? Maybe you'll remember,
Ross,
said, taste your feed.
Yeah.
If it doesn't taste good to you, it's not going to taste good to the chickens.
I have another question. Yeah, so I started out producing every color of egg I could, including Aracanas. I was losing my shirt when it came to the Aracanas. They wouldn't lay very well in the winter. Their production rates are very low. They were hard to keep going. Then I went to sex links, leghorns, production reds, and barred rocks, and I was rotating 4 different flocks in, 500 every 6 months, 500 out, something like that for many years. Then I bunched my groups up to 1,000 flocks each, and I started going with only brown. It was I think it's only been 7 months since I've been only brown eggs. And the truth is, that doesn't matter. The color of your egg is not important. It's the quality of your egg. It's the quality of your product. And don't let people tell you that the colors matter. It's what works for you, and it should really be about the quality.
And the shade of the brown eggshell that you have is not so dark that it's hard to candle them?
They vary. But yeah, no, they're not so dark. No, not at all. No. I mean, if anything, they're lighter than, they're not like a Moran egg or anything like that. They're definitely
right. Those are very dark.
I mean, there's no real problems.
The white ones are easiest to candle. The green are pretty easy. The light brown, some of the dark browns. Where's the light shining through there?
Birds flying in my faces with the leghorns, and you know, they just don't do as well in the winter as those red sex links do. They really don't. They don't. More they're sturdiness. Yeah, they don't do well in bad weather. If we have bad weather, those leghorns don't look good.
Because they're smaller bodied, perhaps?
Yeah, I think that's why. They don't have any, they're very frail, you know, and they die really quickly. And by that, I mean their lifespan is not designed to be long. So you start losing them before your 2 years is up sometimes. And you're like, oh God, I can't even use these as stewing hens.
And they're small bodies, so they're not so great for stewing hens.
Stewing hens, that's right. The red sex link is a beautiful stewing hen. So very popular.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other thoughts, Karen, before we wrap up this section?
No.
So people could contact you even if they don't live in your county, or look at your website.
Yeah, on most of the pages, there's an Ask the Ag Ombudsman. You can click on it and ask your question. So yeah, I'm there I'll try to help.
Yeah, so you can encourage people. I think this is a great example of the collaboration between, cooperation among many different groups. A lot of different groups. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can agree that we care about trying to get the animals to market in a way that works for everyone and have
Exactly.
a clean and safe product.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We
All
really
right,
appreciate you taking the time. I hope the lambs come out well here in lambing season. And thank you both.
All right,
Uh,
thank you.
Nice.